Hi, everyone. Welcome to this NITRUS Talk. We have the privilege of having Dorothy Mashburn with us. She is going to talk about salary negotiation, as most of us might need this once in a while. She has a good experience, and also she studied at Harvard for advanced negotiation certification. And she has a degree in Master of Business Administration from University of Missouri, Columbia. She also has several other education, but I won't go through all those. But I just want to give the floor to Dorothy to take away. We all will be mute during this presentation, and at the end, we'll open up uh, for the question and answer session. So take it away, Dorothy.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you everyone for joining on a Sunday. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. Salary negotiations, we all think of it at the very last minute. So I love to arm people with the tools and techniques beforehand. So when you do have a conversation with your current employer or your future employer, you know exactly what to say to secure that compensation. Really fortunate to meet Rahul, and he said that you guys meet quite often and share best practices. So I thought this was a great time to talk to you and share some of my best practices. Before I go very far, let me talk a little bit about myself and my credentials. I'm an interview and salary negotiation coach. And that is sort of my passion. On my daytime job, I lead a global team in supply chain and partnership management for a medical technology company. And I have the privilege of managing some really, really strong, talented people. And I do know that when it comes to negotiating the best contracts and deals, they are second to none. But when it comes to negotiating for their own salary, people hesitate, including my team. And over the last 20 years or so in corporate America, I've had about 600 commercial negotiations across the globe and with multinational companies at C-suite level and beyond. So I wanted to combine my two passions. One is to empower people, and one is my negotiation skills, and that kind of forms my business, which is the salary negotiation coaching business, which is in popular parlance, is a side hustle. But that's what I do. A little bit about me. I am from Assam, originally Assam, India. And so I'm very familiar with your institution. I went to school in Ajmer, Rajasthan, and I spent a lot of time on the west side of India. And then I came over to the United States for my undergrad studies. And it was a very lonely journey, as I'm sure a lot of you have figured it out as well. There's not a lot of social support. There's not a lot of people who's helping you guide your career. And so that has become a reason for me to help people who are immigrants into the United States to find, to learn the rules of corporate America and do the best for themselves and their family. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am married, and I have two kids, 16 and 11, two boys. So a little bit about myself. What are we going to talk about today? So let's talk about how to secure more money. The math says that if you leave out $5,000 today, if you're just starting your career, over your 40-year career, that can be over $1 million that you leave out. So it's I can't stress this enough. If you've not thought about it, really think about getting the skills to learn how to ask for that compensation. So the four areas we'll focus on is, how do you determine what you should get paid? How do you create a range? So usually people will say, don't give a number, give a range. But how do you do that? And then one of the questions I think Archit or Indranil you had put is, if you are not if HR lowballs you, how do you handle that? So you build flexibility in your strategy. That's how you handle it, and we'll talk about it. And then when you get a job offer, before you even have a chance to understand the job, your recruiter is going to ask you, what are your salary requirements? And so that you need to be able to prepare to answer that. And then you can architect your own leverage. How do you do that? I can talk about that a little bit. And then sometimes you have to walk away. How do you know when to walk away? What is that walk away point? How do you determine it scientifically, so you know that you're not making an emotional judgment? Okay, sounds good? Right. Perfect. So why should you negotiate your offer, right? I touched on it just a little bit. I'm going to just do them. I'm just going to show you the math here. Over a 30-year period, this is the math, 9.8%. Let's just say S&P growth was 9.8%. And there's a $20,000 delta between what you could have gotten and what you left on the table. And right now you're going to think, yeah, it's only $3,000 per year. I take out taxes, it's not much. Let me just get the job, right? But if you factor in all the compound interest and all the growth rate of the market, that $20,000 is $607,364, right? So that is a big number that you could pay for your kids' college, or you could pay for your parents. There's a lot you can do with that money. And so it's really not small dollars we're talking about. It's significant. You could retire early, or, I mean, there's all kinds of things that is important for people in their lifetime, and you're going to work 40 years. So why should you leave your money on the table of somebody else, right? So that's kind of like my why as to why I want everybody to understand why you should negotiate and not leave money on the table. If you guys are feeling brave, I would love to know, if you've not negotiated or if you fear negotiation, why do you think people don't negotiate? If you want to put it on the chat or come off mute, I would love to know.
One thing that I often don't negotiate is the fear that it might scuttle the deal. They might say, hey, he's too money-minded, and he's not, before even proving himself, he's looking for money. So that can probably be.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Sumit. Sumit, you're audible. Can you go ahead?
I can go ahead. Meanwhile, he's figuring his microphone out. One way, I think one of the bottlenecks that I face while negotiating is, I don't know what I am, because I am early stage in my career, so I'm not sure what is the correct amount to quote. And as Rahul sir mentioned, like, there is always a fear that you may be like overquoting yourself, and like you might be thinking that, hey, if let's say it is, say, I'm just making it up, but if it is, let's say, 200K and they don't have a range, so would they think that, oh yeah, this person is like even out of range, and they would not even like call me back? So that is one of the fears, because like at this point in my career, I'm looking for opportunities. So that is like a fear. So I just like do not negotiate that much.
Yep. Sumit, you want to try?
Yeah, Sumit.
Yeah, maybe you can just type it in the thing. We can move on, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So this is very common, Rahul. Thank you for sharing, and Archit, thank you for sharing as well. Very, very common. You fear that you will ruin the relationship, or even before the relationship has started, or you've had a chance to build trust with this company, that they'll think that you're being greedy. You feel that you'll ruin the relationship, or you feel like they think you're way out of, you're being unreasonable and rescind the job offer. These are very, very common. And it's something that I work with my clients like every day. First of all, you have to know, it's a very valid question, but you have to know your market value, right? I'm working with a client right now. He was being offered a salary that was $150,000 less than market, right? Imagine that. I mean, of course, he's at a C-suite level, but if he hadn't like decided, like, because he's working for a private company and they don't pay as much as like a publicly held company, and so there's not a lot of comparisons for him. But anyway, he went out to a public company for an offer, and their offer was significantly lower. And so unless you have knowledge and data, you can negotiate. So the fear always will stay on top of your mind, like, okay, what is it right? Am I being too greedy? All that stuff, right? So what I recommend to people who are in the market is to determine your value first. Before you even have that first conversation with the recruiter, know your value, right? That is the most important thing, because you're going to scientifically know what you should be paid. And if you know that, fear sort of fizzles away. Then you're just talking about 10,000, 20,000 here and there, which is also very important, but you're not going to get undervalued to the extent of $150,000, right? So what I recommend to my my clients is, let me see, I'm gonna go here first. Okay, there are 3 data points. So when I work with my clients, I have my own database that I have from the economic research data, but that's not always available to a layperson, right? So I would recommend going to 3 data sources. So the first set of data sources here: Team Blind, Levels FYI, H1bdata.info. And Rahul, I'll send you all of this so you can send it out to the group, the actual URLs. These will give you specifically what people in your field and in the region that you are making. And what the top 2 take data points from a lot, like thousands of professionals, and they do a regression analysis, and then they show you like where your median should be. H1B data collects information from what the government reports, or what the companies report to the government when they are sponsoring H1B visas. So it's reported by companies to the government. So it's a very fair or very accurate information. And there you can put in software engineer in Redmond, Washington area. What are they making, right? So that's one data point. The second one, you're going to go to your typical ones that you hear about: Indeed, Glassdoor, PayScale, right? That's the second one. And the third one is your alumni groups, because they have a similar education path that you've had. And you want to know, if you've had a similar education path, what are they making? And some of them will share exact, and some will share a range. And that's fine, because you're now triangulating from 3 data points. So it's really, really important to have these 3 data points to be able to say, roughly, you are in the right range. So you're not like, Archit, how you were saying, if you say 200,000, are you completely off base, right? So you want to be in the range of what others are saying someone in your capacity is making. So that's how you come up with a general idea. Now, what I recommend is going to developing a 3-part number. From that data, you're going to say, what is my dream number? What is my desired number? And what is my deal breaker number? And what are these 3 things? So if you are, let's say one of my clients is making $90,000, and she has an offer for, she may decide that if I make just $90,000 at my new job, it's not worth it for me to change. So that's my deal breaker number. Ideally, I would like to make $20,000 more than what I'm making. So if I get an offer for 110, that's my desired number. But I would love to make 140 to 150,000. So the range that she develops for herself will be then 110 to 140. So when you are asked the question, what is your desired salary range? It will be that 110 to 140, and the 90, which is her deal breaker number, is going to stay in her back pocket, because she knows that if the total comp does not reflect at least the 90,000, at least more than the 90,000, she's not going to take the deal, right? So at any given time, I would recommend doing this at least once a year, because your skills are going to improve and you're going to get more education, you're going to have more experience. So once a year, do a calibration of what your salary range should be. What should you be paid? What are you worth? Okay. So I'll pause to see if there are any questions here.
Dorothy, I have a question. Indranil here.
Yeah. Hi, Indranil.
So, yeah, hi. So, of course, those points you mentioned, like Indeed and other websites, but sometimes it becomes very difficult for a particular specialized position to get an idea. And what I observed of late that for the job postings which come out from California, the postings have their salary range explicitly defined, but that's not true for example, Texas. So is that any point to take that as a reference and just get some calculation based out of that, or we should not consider that?
That's a good question, Indranil. So California is under the salary transparency law, so that's why you see that. However, you have to know that both coasts, like East Coast, West Coast, are on the extreme, right? Because of the cost of living adjustment. So and then of course you have like the fancy tech companies that offer like 600,000 in equity, to a brand new recruit, right? So there's a bit of an anomaly on the two coasts. However, it's a data point. You can consider it, but it's not you shouldn't be surprised if like Texas will balk at if you say, I want the California salary, right? So the way to address it, if you're in a field that you have absolutely no idea, you can reach out to an expert such as myself to get a better idea, have a more accurate information, or you can reach out to your network to see how much they're making, and then the third thing is, when you're talking to your recruiters, use that as an experiment. Check out different recruiters and ask, what is the budget for this role? And usually, if the recruiter is hungry to get somebody, I would assume if it's a very specialized field, that they don't get these inquiries a lot, so they would be hungry to get you into the door. So they would be more willing to share the budget for the role. And that sort of gives you an idea of where you need to be.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I think we can go ahead. Vilash has a question, but we can take it after the talk.
Okay. Okay. So a lot of people worry about what happens, if they say my budget is constrained on base salary, right? So let's just say you created a dream number, you gave them a range of 150 to 200, and they say that this budget the role tops out at 150, 140, and I can't help you, right? A lot of times people are excited about a job, they want to make an impact. There are a lot of things, as we know, that shapes our decision to get a job or accept a job offer. So what I recommend you do is build flexibility. And the way you do that is creating a want portfolio. What is a want portfolio? So a want portfolio has three components: your monetary component, time, meaning work-life balance, and then development opportunities, meaning the ability to make a difference, work on significant projects, go get an MBA. There's all kinds of opportunities. So when I work with my clients, I say, like, list out everything without even questioning, whether this is right or not. List out everything that comes to mind that you would like in your career, in your life, right? And then you prioritize. So of course, base and bonus and leadership development credits, those are very important, and pretty much always is very high on the list. And very quickly is the work-life balance. So I just did a poll on LinkedIn, and 64% picked work-life balance even over pay. So I get it, right? With our busy lives, with family and all of that, it's starting to become where money and work-life balance is almost equal, or if not even more important. So what is right for you in the stage of life that you are? So when you have that want portfolio, you can trade with the company. So the company, if you show that you are flexible, they're very, very willing to work with you. And I speak this, from 20 years of experience, right? So you get into problem solving mode. Okay, I see you're constrained on base salary because that comes from a budget within the company's the HR budget, but then they have a different budget for development. Then they have a different budget for paid time off, right? So then you start saying, where do you have flexibility? Because I am happy to work with you. Like, I get it, right? We all have constraints. So maybe they say, well, I do have a little bit of flexibility in development. Well, I've always wanted to go do an MBA. Like, how are you willing to work with me on that, right? How can we make that work? So when you have these components that you can trade, you build a very powerful partnership to problem solve. So I always say negotiation is not a you win, I lose. It's a problem solving exercise. And especially if you've proven yourself to be the candidate they want, where they have made an offer, you know that they want you and they will try and figure out a way to get you, unless you're being like very, like, take it or leave it, 150 or nothing, right? Then there's the opportunity where they say, well, this is not the right culture fit, or, they're being unreasonable. But when you have this flexibility, you definitely have created an opportunity to make the pie bigger for both sides. So now when they ask you what are your salary requirements, you have a range. But what I will recommend is hold off on sharing until you know more about the job requirements. I have a client who I was coaching last year, and she was jumping. It's a very specialized real estate company. And she was jumping to a bigger real estate company, and she got a $10,000 bump. And she was super excited. Like, she's early in her career, like $10,000, that's significant. And then we said, okay, let's look at the difference in what you'd be doing versus what you're doing today. And as she found out more during the interview process, it was 75% more travel, handling, leader of leaders, taking care of like a new market extension. So it was a significantly bigger role, even though the title stayed the same. And so it was probably worth about $50,000, $60,000 more. So the point here is, you don't know what they want you to do from the job description, because half the time job descriptions are put together in a hurry. They don't capture all of the requirements, or things evolve. So try to understand more about what are the expectations of you before you share anything about salary requirements. And so if they ask you, you say, of course, salary is very important, but what I'd like to know is understand what you're trying to do with this role, so that I can give you a better understanding, so I can give you an educated understanding of my salary requirements. So that's one way to punt. So you're punting to later on as you try to understand more. But then some savvy recruiters will be like, I would love to know, because I don't want to waste your time, or I don't want to waste my hiring team's time. And that's when you use the range. It's like, sure, I'll give you a range, but please know that I do need to understand a little bit more about expectations, because then you leave the door open for later if you say, okay, this role needs to be at least like $100,000 more than what I'm making today. And that's when you say, well, when I gave you the range, it was with the understanding that it didn't have this, this, and this. But based on my experience and expertise, I know it's going to be a bigger lift. And therefore, my salary requirements is now adjusted to X, Y, and Z. Okay. There's a hand raised, Rahul. Do we need to?
So what we do is we let the flow continue, but if the speaker is comfortable, it depends on your style. So if you would like to take the question, you can take it, but usually we let the questions come late, at the end of the talk.
Okay, I can wait.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so this is something that is almost intuitive, but very 10% of the population actually go do this. It's how do you architect your own leverage, right? You can win any negotiation when you shift the power dynamics in your favor. And when do you have that? When in a job situation, when you have a second job offer, and when you also have a brand within your own company where you can go and say, hey, I have a job offer and I'd like you to meet that job offer, right? Or I need a promotion. So when you can engineer your situation in such a way where you have some power in your court, that's when you have leverage with both sides. And I see this typically a lot with like physicians. they just get one offer and they're like, I'm excited, let me go, I'm going to go treat patients. But what they don't realize is that if they have competing hospitals wanting them, their leverage shoots up $70,000-$80,000. And and it's, at least for physicians, there's always demand. And so if you're in a field that has demand, you have more leverage. But the point is, take the time, even though it's unpleasant, to go get competing offers. 2 to 3 offers gives you significantly more leverage that you can then use for your benefit. Okay. And so the way to pitch it would be, so let's say you have 2 offers, right? And you want to negotiate with your current employer. So you say, hey, I wasn't really looking, but I have an opportunity here that is too good to pass up. And I would really like to continue my work here. I'm excited about the job. I'm excited the impact we're making. What can we do to make sure that, the market has shifted to have company like the current company match that, right? Match this offer. So again, and then once you have that, they'll say, oh, we can't do that. Or we just gave you a raise last year. Well, that's when you go into problem solving mode with them, right? With your manager. You could say something like, clearly the market has shifted. That's why I have an offer at, $50,000 more. You could use that. Or you could say, unfortunately, the work is very important to me, but financials are also important. And who can refute that, right? We are all in it to make money. So unless that something can change, I'll have to make a decision that will be outside of staying with this company. So don't use that until the very end, because up until then, you're going to problem solve. Like, what else can I get? Maybe you've been working short-staffed, right? And maybe you want to get a second head count. You can ask for pretty much anything if you have that leverage, and if you ask it in a way that is creatively problem solving. So that's how you use that leverage to get a pay raise or whatever it is you want at your current company. And then let's just say they're dragging their wheels, they're dragging their heels, and they're and they're just not willing. That's when you have to make a decision. Is this company the one where you want to stay, or you want to go somewhere else? But when you have that offer, you can still then use the current, wherever you landed with your current, and say, well, my company is trying very hard to retain me, so maybe there was like, you wanted 5 weeks of vacation, maybe they only gave you 3. It's like, could this vacation time be adjusted so I'm fairly compensated, and then I'm happy and willing to make the shift? So like incremental, I call it like rightful nibbling. So you're nibbling at the compensation package little bit at a time. And so, at that point, you get a little bit more on this, a little bit more on that, and overall your compensation package then is much bigger than where you started. Okay, the way to say, it's nerve-wracking, I will admit it and acknowledge it. The way to stay calm is to go back to your want portfolio. And this is how I coach my clients, is your want portfolio you didn't design because you were greedy. You designed it because you wanted something out of your life, your career, something with your family, right? So it's something that is truly your true north. So if you go back to that want portfolio, you don't have that anxiety brain saying, oh, they're going to think you are you're being unreasonable, or you are being, very strange. So go back to your want portfolio. That'll give you your true north. And then the last thing I'll say on this is, companies do expect you to negotiate. But when I am in the hiring season, I expect people to negotiate. So and in fact, I've talked to colleagues across the world, if you don't negotiate for yourself, there is a question of how will you stand up for your team? Do you have the courage to stand up for the team that you're going to be representing, right? So take that fear out of your mind. And if a company acts all like they take umbrage that you're negotiating, then it's probably not the right company. They're probably not based in truth and reality. So kind of keep those two things in mind. Okay, so this is just a way to get some audience engagement. Any creative things you think you can negotiate during an offer? What's the most creative thing you have done?
Yeah, I can't think of one, but yeah, no, I don't know. Very interesting. Let's see what others have experienced.
Location change, move to the US. That's a good one, Ashish.
I generally try to ask them what other perks you have apart from the usual ones, like what other things you bring to the table. So sometimes like I just sometimes I can get a little bit cocky and ask them, okay, like in terms of wellness, what other things do you offer? I play some sports, so are you like, do you have any fund which sponsors the sports and stuff like that? So yeah, interestingly, some companies have that. I was like surprised to know. I was just like fishing around, but found that some companies do have a sports fund as well.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it is truly sky's the limit. The weirdest one I've negotiated for a client is first class tickets for even within the US, because usually companies go international. You can do business class, but here you do here you do economy class. And we were able to negotiate. I mean, she's a VP, so it's a little bit of a easier way to do it. But first class travel was a weird one that I've done. But again, it's very dependent on the person, very dependent on your situation. But just know that things are negotiable. And one of the things I recently realized that people think when an offer is written in a letter, that's the final, like you can't negotiate. That's actually a trick that we use in commercial negotiations. It's like if you say something in writing, then the automatic assumption is it's written in stone, and it's not written in stone. So those are tricks that companies use when you're doing B2B negotiations. And so you should think about that as it's an initial offer. It's not necessarily not negotiable. People have negotiated stocks, and early vesting schedule, gym membership, daycare support, laundry support, bicycle. What was that? Bicycle. It was like a bicycle training. What was it?
Peloton or something?
What was that?
Peloton. Some people do.
Yeah, Peloton. Yes, a Peloton. Yeah, for wellness. To your point, Archit. So there is a lot of opportunities and options. But again, you're not going to say I want this, this, and this, and this, right? But there are some things. Startups have better.
I have an example. I have an example to share.
Okay, Sunil.
So I got an offer to work in Mumbai for the Mumbai Airport Development Project. So a lot of expats were being, put together, and I was approached to join the team. My kids were young. My older one was second grader, going to be second grader. So uh, offer letter didn't say this, but with the CEO of the company, chief operating officer, who was an American, of course, he was also an expat, and he understood the deal. And I said, my s- my son needs to be in an American school, an American School of Bombay. It's costs as much as, if not more, maybe more than private schools here in the U.S. And because I was going to go there for a short-term assignment for a year and a half or so, so my deal was that I need my son to be in the American school, and they had to cover the fees. So that was a handshake agreement. Uh, it was not in the written agreement or written letter, offer letter that you just mentioned. So, he accepted that. But a word of caution that because if you're dealing with such things internationally with companies that are not US based, you need to have another written confirmation somewhere, documentation of this is also going to be offered to you.
So I had to, later on, when time came for reimbursements, the finance and the accounting people were like, "Where is that offer?" So the CEO had to, since I was there, he had to send an email personally to do that. But I think word of caution is get that in writing.
Yeah,
It's a
good
really
point.
good point, Sunil. Yeah, really good point. At least have an email, right? If not on the offer letter, have an email, because again, the CEO could have changed, and that's a really good point.
If I can jump in, because you mentioned having it in written. So I was negotiating with one HR very recently, and I told him that I play sports. So he asked me, which sport do you play? We are happy to sponsor like whatever equipment you play with. So I said, yeah, I play 10-meter air rifle. So he was like, he thought about it. Is like, all right, we can spend like $4,000 or something, but he said I cannot give that in writing. Because it's like a weapon. So he's like, we cannot give that in writing, but I assure you will like reimburse it.
Yeah.
One one
What do
suggestion.
you do what do you do in such situations? Sorry, sir. I was just saying, what do you do in such situations when they are saying that we will do it, but like it's an oral agreement? Do you believe them, or do you take the risk?
You always have to believe them, right? Because that is your future employer. So you have to believe them. However, be ready for the risk that they will take a different role during the tenure that you're there with that company. And so if they do that, then you have the chance of, again, like Sunil said, having to re-justify or maybe even lose the chance. So if it is something truly important to you, you do need to stick to the ground and say, I need this. And either an email is fine or a text is fine, so that you have that in writing for later. And you can say that, like, we know people change jobs, so I need this in writing. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. When you are in a situation where you have been given a verbal commitment, most of the time you are dependent on their goodwill. But one way you can defend, and this is a program management practice that we use often for all this type of agreement, which happens over phone or meeting. Uh, you can send them an email saying, "Hello XYZ, as per our discussion or as per our Zoom call, I'm recapping. Here are what we discussed. Please let me know if any of this does not look correct to you." So you are not waiting for them to say yes, you're waiting for them to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And
Great point.
time check,
Thank you.
Dorothy, how are you doing for the time?
All right, I am going to go to my last slide. It's when to walk away. So remember the salary range you will develop, right? Your deal breaker number. So if the offer does not even meet your deal breaker, then it's time to walk away. Same thing with your current company, right? If they cannot match the best offer, that is, in negotiations, we call it BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. It's basically an option B. So you weigh if your option A is here or option B is here. Whichever is lower, in theory, you reject the lower offer. But in the case of salary negotiation, you look at your lower number on the deal breaker number on your range. And that's when you know that it's just not worth it to continue negotiations. Okay. And it's completely fine to walk away. So the gentleman I told you whose market offer was $150,000, he walked away. So, and that's perfectly fine, because why would you get paid less than your market, right? So, and then you keep going for your next role and next role. Now, some people will take the lower offer, but still be in the market to look for the next one. And that's fine too. It's your career and your negotiation. So you run it like you manage your career. Okay. So that's it. So open for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Dorothy. What we'll do is we'll go through the questions that came on the on the chat. That allows people to raise their hands. So the raising hands queue builds up. Right now, I have only one, Sunil, raising hands. But so we can go through the questions. So Abhilash Srivastav, he asked a question. After going through the salary range, how should a fresher justify his ask for the figure he is quoting?
Okay, so you will say, I've done my market research. That's one way. And I've also checked with my alumni network. And based on the the information, I have triangulated this salary range.
Okay. And
One more piece, Rahul. So when you, in your mind, when you say I'm only a fresher, I'm just a fresher, you've automatically reduced your worth. So I challenge you to say, I bring this skill. This is the impact I'm going to make, and I need to be paid for that. So if you rephrase your mind, it will help you be more confident.
Yeah, it's a good point. Very good point, because you bring value. Being a fresher, should not be the thing. So I had a question. When I was a manager, I had joined earlier, and then the salaries have gone up. Salary bands had gone up. So the person I was going to hire was actually going to get more than me. So how I did go ahead, and then later I talked to my manager, and he promised to talk to the HR, but nothing happened. And my subordinate was getting more than me. That hurt me a little bit, but then I accepted. So how is there any tip for that?
Yeah, the best thing would be to, if you wanted to stay in the same company, right, you would say, put all your cards on the table. Like, market has clearly shifted, and because I'm in the same role, I do need to be paid more. The better one would be if you went and got a second offer to say, like, look, I not only we know internally, we also know externally that the market has shifted. So basically you either make me whole, or you may see I'm out of the door.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Going to the next, Ashish Mahapatra. I don't know whether that was a trick, like you a response to a
no, sir. Yeah, I don't have a question.
Okay, cool. Then Abhilash again. I am not aware, and hence curious that do the startups have a better salary margins for negotiations or the established companies?
Yeah, its startup world is very different, right? From startup to startup. If they have a lot of funding, they will do whatever it takes to get you, because they need somebody to help them scale the business up or make whatever the difference they need. They don't have the scrutiny typically that public companies have. So they have more leeway, but it also cuts both ways. So they could be very low, or they could be significantly higher. So you've got to do your diligence on your market rates on that.
Excellent. So those are the questions, and I can see the audience count 21, which is actually much higher than a lot of other talks. So people seem to like your talk. So now I will go for the raised hand. So Sunil is first, and then Amlan, and then Grishma. Sunil, unmute and please ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Rahul. Dorothy, you gave an example of a person who was moving in the real estate from one company to a position that was a significantly upgraded position, and there was a lot more expectations to build maybe something new. So there are risks involved in such positions. Sometimes, like when you get those offers, how do you want to protect, hedge your bets in terms of asking for some sort of backstop or what I call, severance packages up front during the negotiation? Is that a strategy you can think of, especially for people who are in senior positions? They're being asked to go to a position. So the expectation is maybe in 2 years time or something, that a certain time frame, you are going to set up something new for the company or raise the bar or whatever. And it may or may not happen. Market conditions drive that. But how do you protect yourself?
Yeah, every client I talk to now, we do negotiate a severance clause, especially because if you have had like 15 years in one company and then you're going to a different company and you're starting from fresh, right? If they do have layoffs, and we know companies are having more regular layoffs nowadays, you do want to have a severance package clause determined. And you could do, what maybe you could get 2 weeks for every year that you are at your current company, and you kind of negotiate somewhere similar. And then you could also ask for an accelerated vesting of any stock options that you have. So, if they say, again, making this up, 200,000 in 3 years, you can say, I want that all in, the second year, half of it in the first year, half of it in the second year. So there are different ways. But again, every situation you're going to assess to the risk in the market and then say, okay, this is how I need to address this particular risk and protect myself.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, great. There was actually a question which was sent by email. Arjit had asked that question. Amlan, just please wait a minute. Let me ask that question first. And the question was, for people who are more agreeable and non-confrontational, who cannot counter people's arguments immediately, what tips would you give them when the HR tells them that your expectation is unreasonable and try to lowball them?
Yeah. This is why it's so important to have the salary range beforehand, right? So this is where I try to address that question a little bit. But when you have that 3-part number right here, the dream, desired, and deal breaker, that's based on data and research. You didn't make this number up from scratch. So if there is an HR who's being unreasonable, or say that you're being unreasonable, you can go back to I did my homework, and based on my homework is what I'm asking this for. And I'm going to bring value to this organization in this way, X, Y, and Z. Based on all of this, I am very confident that this is a reasonable ask. But I'm open to your suggestions on where I need to be. So kind of keep that open dialogue, open it up, and that way you don't feel like it's confrontational, but you do need to be confident that you did your homework, and that's what you're using as the basis for your ask.
Okay, great. Thank you. So go back to raised hands. Amlan is next. Amlan, go ahead, unmute and ask.
Hi, thank you, Raul. Hi, Dorothy. Thank you very much for this talk. I have kind of 3-part type question. So one is, so I don't have any experience with those FANG kind of companies, but I worked. Few of the experience mine are all banking companies. They're public limited big companies, but so whatever I can see, the policies related to leaves or severance is kind of well defined across the board. It's not like negotiable that you can ask more leave or they'll give you less if you ask money or severance. So that's one part of it. Is there, in such case, any point in trying to negotiate that? And the 2 other questions were, one is like, in this East Coast, like I think in West Coast as well, probably New York also has a similar, where companies, when they post, they declare the salary range. So if there is a job where you are eligible, like you are being offered, and the salary range is already declared by, how do you you just go for the max, or how does that work? And the part which you said about giving your range to the HR negotiation, if you have given a range, let's say 150 to 200, they will try to go lower, you want higher. So how do you negotiate when you give a range?
Yeah. So to your first question, I'm a negotiator, so I don't think, I don't go into any negotiation thinking something is non-negotiable, right? You go in with your open mind to say everything is negotiable. The way this is how it worked out with one negotiation. I'll give you an example where they said that they don't go over 3 weeks, right? Over 3 weeks is the max on PTO. And so what my client was like, okay, let's just keep that in our back pocket. And she negotiated for base salary, and they got up to 180, but her request was 210. And she knew that they wanted her. And so that's, of course, key. When they want you, they will do whatever it takes to get you into the door. And so she said, I know you said the 3 weeks was non-negotiable, but what if you open that up for me between her and the hiring manager and gave me an extra week? I'll be happy to take the offer at 180, right? So she gave a concession in the negotiation by saying, okay, you can have me at 180, not 210. But then she also asked for something in return, which was the additional week. Mm-hmm. So every clause in a negotiation is negotiable depending on how you approach it. The second question was I think the New York, if they've already published it. They publish, even within transparency laws, these companies have become very savvy. They will publish such a wide range that you might as well not know it, right? Like, what good does it do? So it's still very important for you to know your market value with your experience and expertise. And if you know that, that's your true north. And then I can't remember what was another question, Amlan.
No, I was asking like if I have given the range in the negotiation, like the example you quoted, if 100 to 150, they will try to go as low as in that range. Let's say it is within their budget,
Yeah.
and I want the max. So how do you then
Yeah.
navigate that
So
discussion?
that's why this 3-part number is so important, because your desired number should be your upper limit. So if so if you say 150 to 180, they'll go with 150, right? So don't go at 100 to 150, then go with 150 to 180. That way, if they go the lowest, that's your highest. So, and again, within reason, within the boundaries of the market value. And so that's how you hedge it. And companies know that too. So they are going to go to 140, for example. And so you find what you'll accept, right? 150, if that's what you accept, then if it's lower than that, then you start asking for other things within the negotiation.
Excellent. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, Grishma, I think you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah. Hi. So if we are working as a contractor and how do we negotiate? Right now I'm working as a contractor and they know like I'm just back from my maternity. So they're sure like I'm not going to shift. So they did not like rise my pay. And when I asked for a pay raise, they said like this is what the project is giving us. So for that type of answer, how do we negotiate?
Yeah. Your baby is very cute, by the way.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. What I would recommend, Grishma, is even contract rates are negotiable. But if you ask in a way where you're coming at it like, can you please give me a higher price, a higher value, they will always say no. So the best thing will be to get a competitive range from another contractor or get the
Okay.
market data and speak with data. So the numbers don't lie. So, and then they might still say like the project is tapped out, but then you have a decision to make. Like, do you take this new role or do you work it out here? And then once you feel more comfortable in your life situation, you move to the next one. But using data will help you versus just asking for an increase.
Okay, because like the same situation I faced like when I had my elder one. So that time, like during my pregnancy also, I worked a lot, but when they did not like raise, then I thought it is like I tried for the other company and it was like 50 to 60% hike, but I just said it is like 90% hike because I don't want to continue. I knew they are going to rise, but she offered like 100% rise, but I did not like the way like she could have given earlier rather than like
Yep.
later. So
Yep.
I didn't know like this time I couldn't like keep on shifting the jobs because they behaved the way. So I just wanted to know like the right way.
Yeah. I mean, it is true, right? So I, as a hiring manager or manager of people, I never counter, because to me that's a integrity issue, right? If I could have, I should have, but now that I'm at the cost, I'm at the risk of losing my person. That's when I decide to activate. That just shows poor integrity. And so you're right. That is not okay. And so we as employees need to vote out those bad behaviors. So if you do have an opportunity and they do, and then they meet you when you're about to leave, that's a big red flag that this is not your long-term company.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Amlan, you have hand raised. Do you have another question or?
No, sir, I think I'll remove it.
Okay. Hey, Dorothy, one thing I would like to recommend you to do is, so how do people contact you? If you can bring that slide, then it will get recorded and people can refer to it.
Okay, let me see.
Meanwhile, anybody else has a question, please, please raise your hand. I'll give you a chance. You can actually type your website. I think, Dorothy Mashburn.
Yeah, let me do that.
Yeah.
And then I have I will also recommend a book. So one of the things that came up, I think, is, or subtly indicated was, how do you create the leverage? So I have a ebook called Executive Edge. I would highly recommend it. It's like $17 for you guys to go get it, because what it gives you is how do you make yourself that indispensable interviewee so that they really want you. And if they really want you, that's when you have all the leverage in the world. And it gives some really good tips, so I recommend you getting it. Let me see if I can put that here.
Yeah, putting it on this will be good because people will watch this recording.
Okay.
Also, your website, if you can put that also in your slideshow, maybe add a slide and put that.
Okay. So this is the book.
Maybe you can put these two URLs and add a slide to your slideshow.
Okay.
That way it will be visible easily.
Okay. All right. I will do that. That's a good suggestion. Thanks, Rahul.
Because what happens is at the end, you can just leave that slide on. So you can write down and then contact later.
Yep. I will do that. And I'll send you the deck and then also the links to the websites to check salary. So everybody has that.
Yeah, I will add the deck to our website, nitrustalks.com.
Hi, Dorothy. This is Sumit, and sorry for last minute question.
No.
I joined 7 or 8 minutes late. So, do you have a professional service you run where you help in negotiating salaries?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So the best way would be to contact me, and again, I will put that link here with Rahul, so you have a way to join my calendar or get in touch with me. And I'm very active on LinkedIn too, if you want to reach out to me.
Okay. And if you don't mind, like, what's the fee range, or just again, we are talking about range. Is it like how does it work?
Yeah, so every situation is different, Sumit. I have to have a first conversation, 30-minute complimentary conversation to understand where you are in your journey, and then it's custom quoted.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that, Sumit. Very important. So if you want to go back to the slideshow and add those two URLs,
okay.
So what happens is in a slideshow, they're in a bigger letter.
Yep.
So then we can leave it on. Okay. Hold on just a minute. Okay, you can go to the end and add a slide.
Okay.
And then that may.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, there is your URL is there.
My URL is here. Yep, and then
leave it there. Yeah, I think that helps, because then somebody who's be watching it later will be able to. Okay, great. And I saw that there is a services page there, work with me kind of thing. So all those information are there on that website.
Yeah, exactly. Ebook is here.
Okay, great.
There's my website.
Yeah, thank you. And